Today, we're diving into one of the most complex and, frankly, volatile relationships in modern history, the one between the United States and Pakistan. It's a story defined by these incredible swings between being the closest of partners and the deepest of rivals. So let's just get right to the heart of it. Are they allies, or have they just been partners of convenience? This is a relationship that has always been a real roller coaster, driven less by any kind of shared values and more by constantly shifting strategic needs. And to really understand this wild ride, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. See, this partnership wasn't founded on shared ideals or democratic principles. Nope, it was founded on a shared enemy, the Soviet Union.
Right from the get-go, this was a masterful strategic play. Pakistan's first prime minister basically made this direct appeal to the US, saying, hey, our values are more aligned with yours than with the communists. It was a really clever way to get the attention of the US and secure that vital economic and military aid. And just like that, the stage was set for a partnership of convenience.
So, that initial alignment? Well, it didn't just stay in alignment. It quickly blossomed into a full-blown partnership. This was really the first major high point in the relationship, a time when Pakistan became absolutely central to America's global strategy.
And what's really striking here is just how fast this all happened. The prime minister visits in 1950, and just 4 years later, boom, there's a formal defense agreement. By 1955, Pakistan is a full member of not one, but two major US-led military alliances. Things moved very, very quickly.
Now you gotta understand, these pacts weren't just for show. For Washington, Pakistan's location was everything. It was the perfect anchor for its policy of containing the Soviet Union. But for Pakistan, the calculation was totally different. Their main goal? Get a powerful friend and advanced weapons to counter what they saw as their biggest threat, their neighbor, India.
So at its core, this was a straight-up transaction. The US got a crucial base for intelligence, including those famous spy flights over Soviet territory, and in return, Pakistan got a massive flood of economic and military aid that was absolutely vital for its security and its development.
But yeah, like any good roller coaster, what goes up must come down. And that honeymoon period, it wasn't going to last. The first big drop was a steep one, happening when American and Pakistani interests suddenly and sharply split apart, leading to this deep, deep sense of betrayal. And this quote really gets to the heart of it. This feeling of being abandoned became a central theme in the relationship. When war broke out with India in 1965, the US cut off military aid to both countries. From Pakistan's point of view, its closest ally just vanished when they needed them most. And then it happened again in 1971, which just cemented that mistrust. The consequences of all this were huge. You see Pakistan start to pull away from the West, leaving SEATO and eventually joining the non-aligned movement. But the really big one, the move that would cause major problems later on, was its decision to start developing its own nuclear bomb as the ultimate defense against India.
So just when it looked like the relationship was completely dead in the water, one single event on the world stage changed everything. It realigned their interests so dramatically that it sent that roller coaster climbing right back up to its highest peak yet.
Everything changed overnight. The Soviet Red Army rolls across the border into Afghanistan, and suddenly Pakistan is the most important country in the world to the United States. All that past mistrust, the sanctions, the nuclear issue, it was all just swept under the rug because of this urgent new reality.
And this moment right here, this tells you everything you need to know about who held the cards now. The Carter administration comes in with an initial offer of $400 million, and Pakistan's leader, General Zia, famously calls it peanuts. He knew exactly how valuable his country was, and he was ready to hold out for a much, much bigger payday.
And boy, did they get it. The Reagan administration rolls in, and bam, a massive $3.2 billion package is on the table. This was a complete 180. The US even waived sanctions that had been put in place specifically because of Pakistan's nuclear program.
This was the peak, the high water mark of their partnership. Together, they ran the largest covert operation in history, funneling weapons and supplies to the Mujahideen fighters in Afghanistan. It ended in a shared victory, with the Soviets pulling out. For a moment, it felt like all that old mistrust was just gone.
So here's the big question. What happens when the music stops? When that common enemy disappears? Well, the roller coaster didn't just dip. It went into a complete free fall, a plunge from which you could argue the relationship has never really recovered.
And the whiplash from this was incredible. The Soviets leave, and it's like a switch flips. The one thing holding the alliance together, that shared enemy, poof, it's gone. And suddenly, that nuclear program that had been so conveniently ignored for a decade came roaring back as the #1 issue.
See, all along, there was this little legislative time bomb just ticking away in the background. It was called the Pressler Amendment. And basically, it said that for U.S. aid to keep flowing, the president had to tell Congress every year that Pakistan didn't have a nuclear bomb. Throughout the 80s, that was just a formality, but that was about to change.
And then, it all happened so fast. The Soviets are out, that's the trigger. In 1990, President George H.W. Bush says, "Nope, I can't make that a certification anymore." And just like that, all the aid is cut off. Overnight. But the real slap in the face, the thing that poisoned relations for years, was when the U.S. blocked the delivery of F-16 fighter jets that Pakistan had already paid $650 million for.
So the entire 1990s just became this messy, chaotic cycle. More sanctions for missile technology from China. Then, a brief moment of relief with something called the Brown Amendment. But then bam, Pakistan conducts its own nuclear tests in '98, and even tougher sanctions come crashing down. The decade ends with yet another layer of sanctions after a military coup. It was just relentless.
So when you look back at this whole story, what do you really see? It's not a partnership built on shared ideals, is it? It's a relationship of necessity. Time and time again, big world events have forced these two countries together, only for them to fly apart again once the immediate crisis is over. And that leaves us with a really critical question. In a relationship that's built on convenience, is the cycle of cooperation and conflict just doomed to repeat itself? Forever?